The distress signal from Colony Hargrove reached Earth 11 days after the colony stopped existing. By the time the relay burst crawled across 40 light-years and unpacked itself in the listening arrays above Nevada, there was nothing left to save. Only a recording. 93 seconds of static, screaming, and a child's voice asking her mother why the sky was on fire. General Elena Vasquez watched the recording 4 times before she spoke. "Confirm the aggressor," she said. The analyst at the console, a young man named Danny Ferris who had transferred out of MIT 6 months earlier to work on First Contact Protocol, swallowed hard. Ship signatures matched the Ossuran Compact. Same drive harmonics as the vessels that made contact at Proxima Station last year. The ones who signed the Threshold Accord. The room went very quiet. 8 months earlier, the Ossuran Compact had sailed into the solar system with open hands and translated poetry, offering humanity a seat at the table of 100 worlds. They had shaken hands, or the closest analog their four-fingered grip allowed, with the Secretary General of the United Nations on the steps of a rebuilt UN building in New York. They had called humanity young, but promising. They had signed a treaty guaranteeing the safety of every human colony, in exchange for access to Earth's uniquely resilient agricultural genome. Colony Hargrove had been humanity's first deep space settlement beyond the Accord's signing. 40,000 people. Wheat fields under an alien sun. A school with 211 children enrolled. Now it was a debris field with a radiation signature that would keep it lifeless for 600 years. "Get me the president," Vasquez said. "And get me Admiral Okafor. We're not drafting a formal protest." 3 days later, in a briefing room beneath Colorado Springs, the argument that would decide the fate of 2 species began. Secretary of State Renee Holloway stood at the head of the table, her tablet trembling slightly in her hand. Not from fear, but from the effort of holding back tears she refused to let the room see. "I am not saying we forgive this," she said. "I am saying that if we retaliate without proof of compact state involvement, we hand them the moral high ground. We become the aggressors in the eyes of 97 other member worlds." "They murdered 40,000 civilians," Admiral Titus Okafor said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "There were children in that colony, Renee. I watched the last transmission. I am done watching. We don't even know why," Holloway pressed. "If this was a rogue faction, a splinter group acting outside compact authority, then the compact answers for the actions of ships flying their transponder codes," Okafor said. "That's not vengeance. That's accountability. The difference is we're not waiting for their permission to demand it." President Grace Whitfield had said almost nothing for 20 minutes. She sat with her hands folded, listening the way she had listened during 3 decades in the Senate before this, weighing not just the facts, but the weight each word would carry once it left the room. Finally, she spoke. "Bring me Fleet Admiral Reyes." 200 kilometers above Earth, the USS Constitution, flagship of a fleet the world hadn't known it possessed, built in the dark corners of budget lines and black-site shipyards ever since the Compact's first survey drones had been spotted in the Oort cloud 4 years prior, hung silent in orbit. Fleet Admiral Diego Reyes had spent those 4 years preparing for exactly this moment, and he had prayed every single day that it would never come. "They think we're primitives," Reyes told the assembled bridge crew. Behind him, the tactical display showed the full weight of what humanity had built without a single compact observer ever knowing. 41 warships, weapons platforms disguised as commercial satellites. A fleet that had trained in secret because the people who authorized its construction understood something the diplomats in New York hadn't wanted to admit. Hope is not a defense strategy. "They think we signed that treaty because we were grateful," Reyes continued. "They think 40,000 dead colonists is an acceptable price for teaching a young species its place. They are about to learn how wrong they are." On the screen, Colony Hargrove's memorial wall scrolled past. Names, faces, ages. A firefighter from Ohio who'd volunteered to be a colony's first responder. A teacher from Atlanta who'd brought her whole 3rd grade class across the stars because she believed in the future. A little girl named Mia Donovan, age 7, whose last recorded words were the ones the whole planet had now heard. "Vengeance first," Reyes said quietly. "Diplomacy after. Not because we've abandoned who we are, but because we will not let anyone mistake our patience for weakness ever again. The Ossuran flagship Threnody of Peace did not detect the Constitution's battle fleet until it was too late to run. Commander Ves Idrin, third-degree emissary of the Compact, a career diplomat who had personally overseen the massacre order under the belief that a controlled show of force would keep the newest species properly humble, watched in disbelief as 31 human warships dropped out of stealth in a formation his tacticians had never modeled, because their intelligence had assessed humanity as decades away from interstellar military capability. "Hail them," Idrin ordered, voice cracking. "Tell them this was an error. Tell them." "They are not responding to hail, Commander," his tactical officer said. "They are responding with weapons fire." The battle over the Ossuran picket line at Threshold Station lasted 6 minutes. It was not a massacre. Reyes had given explicit orders. Disable, board, capture. Humanity would not become the thing it was punishing. When it was over, 3 Ossuran cruisers drifted crippled and boarded, their crews restrained but alive, and Commander Idrin stood in the Constitution's brig, staring at Admiral Reyes through the containment field with an expression that had shifted from arrogance to something close to fear. "You were supposed to be grateful," Idrin said. "We were," Reyes said, "until you decided gratitude meant we wouldn't fight back." The formal hearing before the Compact's Interstellar Council took place 4 months later, on neutral ground aboard a station orbiting a dead star. Secretary Holloway made the case herself, standing before delegates from 97 worlds, holding up the recovered black box data from Idrin's own flagship, orders in his own voice, authorizing the strike on Hargrove as what he called a demonstration for the newcomers. "Humanity did not come here today to ask your forgiveness," Holloway told the council. "We came to tell you what happens next. We answered an atrocity with force, because that is the language your commander chose to speak first. But we stopped. We took prisoners instead of graves. We are offering you the diplomacy he never gave us, because unlike him, we understand the difference between strength and cruelty." The council stripped the Ossuran Compact of its seat pending full reparations. Commander Idrin stood trial under interstellar law for the first war crimes prosecution in the council's 3,000-year history, and humanity, quietly, without fanfare, without ever raising its voice again, was offered a permanent seat at the table. Back on Earth, at the edge of a wheat field in Ohio that had been planted in memory of the colony that never got to harvest its own, Elena Vasquez stood beside a modest stone memorial engraved with 211 names of children who never came home. "We didn't do this for glory," she said to the small crowd gathered there. Colonists' families, the president, a few reporters who'd stopped asking political questions and simply listened. "We did it because somewhere out there, a 7-year-old girl asked why the sky was on fire, and nobody answered her. We made sure that question would never go unanswered again." The wind moved through the wheat, and for a moment, it sounded almost like a held breath finally released. Humanity had chosen vengeance first, but it hadn't lost itself in the choosing, and that, more than any fleet or any treaty, was the victory that mattered.